I think the first time where you get, and this happens in every Amityville / Conjuring film, where it's like the first night or something, and you see, again, a POV of the demon kind of coming out of its shit room in the basement and wandering around the house to see what's going on. And there's a really good practical effect. It's fairly simple, but it's very well done, where it walks past a cross on the wall.
Yes.
So the demon is sort of pacing past this cross and sort of has a look at it, decides, oh, I don't like that. Looks in the dining room, and then the tablecloth just sort of pulls off the dining room table and immediately goes over and hangs and covers the cross. And it's really well done. Just subtle, but, well, I suppose it's not that subtle, but it's not... Yeah, I don't know. It feels very tasteful. I don't know. It's like a very tasteful demon.
Pasolini would have been, he'd have been sticking his nose up at it.
Exactly. Yeah, so there's a lot of stuff like that, and there's a good fire bit later on in front of the church, I think.
That's right.
The imagery in it is all very good, and you got Burt Young kind of giving it his all.
I'm gonna, God damn it, you.
Yeah, and fulfilling the typical role in these films of the dad, even when confronted with absolutely obviously paranormal activity, just not being asked at all. Not being asked at all that he's nearly throttled his wife or something, and then someone points out, wait, this is something evil going on. Just forgotten about.
Damn it, you kids! Yeah. What have I told you about opening every drawer in the house at the same time?
It's a really odd bit of casting, because I guess at this point he would have been hot off the heels of Rocky.
Yeah,
where he's quite a nice kind of guy. Yeah, I mean, it's pretty odd to have him in it. He does quite well, and he's definitely trying very hard.
He makes an impression. I'm assuming that his trousers are just stapled onto his legs because his belt is more often in his hand than it is anywhere else.
Any given opportunity is whipping the belt off. Yeah, and I guess they're painting that from the very start. Like when they well, first of all, I thought even though I'd seen it before, when I watched it this most recent time, I was like, oh wait, is he their granddad or something? That he doesn't seem. There's nothing about him that's at all similar to the rest of the family. He seems a lot older. He seems a lot more gruff than everyone else. And I remember
they're warmer to him at the start than I remembered. So much so that I assumed the bad stuff that he does must happen in the house, but then there's reference to stuff that happened before, like when he presumably beat up Sonny at some point. But they're all like, hey, Daddy. And
it's also, the family dynamic is also a little confusing right from the off, because the son and the daughter, the brother and sister, seem like a couple.
Yes.
Which obviously is, kind of becomes manifest later on. But they seem like a couple. And so I'm thinking, oh, wait, is this like a young married couple who are moving into this house and their
folks are helping them.
It's a little confusing. And then this, so Burt Young as the dad is instantly kind of horrible to the son, to Sonny. He says something like, I think Sonny says like, "Wow, what a beautiful house," and he's like, "Oh, you're saying beautiful? That's gay. You're gay or something like that." It's something like that to kind of emasculate him.
He mentions that he stopped at the shop to get a packet of cigarettes. And Burt Young's like, "What, you think you're a big man? You're smoking your cigarettes?"
That's right.
You ain't so big, I can't whoop you.
Instantly antagonistic. And I think I get what they're doing. But then it does make it a little more confusing later on when he starts getting violent with his family, and they're like, well, no, this is the evil of the house that's making you do this. But
Well, that's because that's what it would until that point when he says to him about you're not. You know, your lungs aren't so full of smoke that I can't belt you, belt it back out of you. And Sonny says, "Yeah, I know," so implying that something has happened. But
that's right.
So
and then a bit later, the daughter, played by Diane Franklin, who I've bumped into at several horror conventions. She'll always be there. Yeah, she's often there. Bless her heart. I really I like Diane Franklin. I think she's, she's turned up in a lot of things which don't get the recognition they deserve, but she's always there, giving her a role. Anyway, she mentions at one point to him later on that to her brother. Sorry, she mentions. I think Daddy makes Mummy have sex with him.
Well, yeah, there was a. I mean, thankfully, it's not. Hello, I was gonna say thankfully it never made the film, but what did make the film was hardly all that much more pleasant. But there was apparently a scene where Burt Young did force himself
on the mother,
on his wife in a less in the back, let's say. So that's not there, and apparently a lot of
the devil's door. I mean, it's maybe that's a metaphor of the room full of shit where the devil lives, and then he's.
They're looking for
symbolic.
Latenia.
Oh lordy. Yes, the rectum of the house. Okay, I didn't know that. I didn't know that that was actually, because it does seem to sort of come out of nowhere. Because everything we see is that actually the mom is, after he's beat the kids and sort of given her a bit of a throttling, she sort of comes up behind him and just like, getting all kind of lovey with him. But then for the daughter to say that later, I was like, oh, hang on, what? But you don't have much time to think about it, because almost immediately after she said that, her brother's telling her to get her kit off. Yeah,
and apparently that is the other scene that was there and never made it out into the world. Is that apparently that scene went on quite a lot longer.
Oh, it went on long. I was about to say, it is in my version. It's definitely there.
Well, that quite abrupt cut that happens, apparently once upon a time it did not cut at that point.
I see. Yeah, because you sort of see them begin, but it doesn't get much more graphic than that. But what I don't quite understand there is the demon's motivation. So that by this point, the demon has possessed the son. And then the son starts thinking, all right, well, now I'm going to try and shag my sister. Now, is that just the demon sort of generally corrupting the household for fun before having him kill them all? Or like, what's that all about? Or is did the demon fall in love?
Maybe
the demon was walking around the house, it fell in love with Diane Franklin and went, I need to do something about this. I'm going to possess the boy, and that way I can start having sex with humans.
Well, yeah, I mean, they have some quite. Maybe it's only because you're now watching it, knowing what happens later. But the early exchanges between the two, in the room with the windows behind them, are verging on inappropriate.
They are, yeah, right from the off. They are, where. Yeah, he says something to the effect, like he's kind of teasing her about being.
Am I your type? Or
my type,
like, that sort of thing.
Are you good looking? Or like, I think there's something about big tits.
Yeah. She says you like them. Yeah.
Yeah, it is a bit weird. And again, it mirrors the scene, like that framing. It might even be in the same room of the house where the brother and sister are having when they first moved in. It's the same as when the husband and wife, the Lutzes, move in the first one, and have a similar kind of conversation. Although the Lutzes are talking more about like, oh, isn't it a shame all these murders happened here? Whereas the brother and sister in Amityville II are talking about tits. And generally being a little bit inappropriate with each other.
Yeah.
So maybe it's alright, he had these repressed urges, then the demon got in him, and the demon allows him to
Well, there's two things.
Loses morality about it. I don't know.
Well, first of all, that whole opening bit. I mean, as you said, it doesn't feel like it feels like a reunion. It feels like a bunch of people who haven't seen each other in years
yes,
are meeting up to carry boxes into this house for some reason.
It does. You're right.
It's the annual box run, so they've gathered in this neighborhood in the middle of nowhere, apparently. So that feels weird anyway. So it takes a while before you realize what the dynamic is. And also, there's a weird thing going on with the younger two, Robert, because, all right, they're not doing that, but they are trying to suffocate each other.
Yeah,
like,
the children. Yeah, the younger siblings. Yeah,
she's the younger. There's a scene where the wee girl's got the plastic bag pulled over the wee lad's head,
and nothing comes of that.
Well,
that's not even. That's as far as I know, that's not even implied to be demonic.
No, that's
in nature.
That's
just what these kids do.
Yeah.
Suffocate each other with plastic bags. I think the mum put a stop to it? Does she go, "Oh, you stop that now"?
She does. It's just in a kind of.
It's very offhand. Like, don't, come on.
Yeah, it's like like I just tidied that. It's that kind of tone.
Yeah.
It's But the other thing is that I think is really. It doesn't follow a sort of linear. It's hard to say when the possession of the title actually happens, because I know there's that incredible sequence where he's being first kind of.
I think that's when that's when it's supposed to have fully taken him over, whereas before that,
prior to that.
It's the same in the first one. It's like, genuinely, you sort of feel a bit ill and start hearing voices. But in Amityville 2, he's hearing them through his headphones.
His headphones, yeah.
Through his Walkman. He's listening to music all the time, and then he starts hearing a voice just saying, "Fuck your sister now." Which I wondered, given the time, 82. This would be around the time of the whole Suicide Solution and playing Judas Priest backwards type thing, wouldn't it? Hidden messages in the music that your kids are listening to, telling you to kill people.
I don't know.
I don't know if that was intentional or not, but it is odd. I mean, obviously they made some kind of conscious decision to set it at a time where he could be listening to something on his headphones. Without being anachronistic.
And just on I will say a wee bit about that recent redo of this, which I didn't even know existed until like literally a couple of days before we're doing this. I heard about it on another Amityville film, and I just put it on because it was about the same thing, and I was surprised at how closely it actually was. But there is reference. Somebody makes a comment about if you play it backwards, it says this.
Right.
There's a reference to, but I mean that film was made in 2018. Where people in 1982 is aware of this, I don't know, but I think probably so. It's also a thing. I remember the last time I saw Purple Rain, which was maybe 5-6 years ago. I was struck by how much it resembles Amityville 2. If you look up. Yeah, even Prince's house. Like, if you look up the house in Purple Rain, it looks like the Amityville house. It's got the windows.
Oh, I'll have to watch it again.
You've got the abusive father. You've got the Prince as this young fella who is possessed by what he hears in these headphones. And then this glorious kind of eruption at the end.
Does the house explode? I don't remember it.
No, but choruses explode.
Oh, I see. Oh, that's fun. But so I don't know if that's intentional or not, but it wouldn't surprise me if it was. Hidden messages in the music. There's some reason.
Yeah. For that specifically. But I do like how it's like you're never quite sure when it has taken place, and because 1 minute, he's sitting at dinner and he looks at the mirror and it seems to crack. And he seems to realize he's done it, but he's not the least bit bothered. But then 2 scenes later, he's terrified of nothing. So there's this kind of, is he has it happened? Has it not happened?
It makes you wonder if it's if maybe there were some things that were out of sequence.
Maybe, but it's also
they might have
just
re-edited it.
It's kind of. I mean, I guess it's like with the. Although the film does not suggest this is what it is, but it's like any sort of psychotic illness or anything like that. I mean, they don't. It's not just a linear kind of, voices getting louder and louder and louder. It's today. It's, people are hearing all this stuff, and then the next week they hear nothing, and then suddenly it's back. So it kind of progresses with that sort of logic, where
because I think it's implied at one point that months have passed. I think it's actually probably around the time that the boy is possessed and he's made the moves on his sister.
Yeah.
Because then it cuts to her talking to the priest and discussing. She's in the confession box and she's discussing her sexual relationship with her brother, as if it's been going on for a long time.
Yeah.
Because she seems to know his motivations for it and like what's going on. So it seems like there's been a time jump there of a few months, but I'm not sure if there actually is supposed to have been.
Well, when the priest does return to the house soon after it's snowing. And he sees the sister. Remind me, the actress.
Diane Franklin.
Yes, and she's at the door as a.
That's right.
Much like Linda Blair appears to Richard Burton in Exorcist II when he is confronted with her and she's all in makeup and revealing dress and whatnot. So Diane Franklin sort of looks like that. But I may as well then throw it in now because she's relevant to this as well. So when I was looking up, mainly just to see how many of the Amityville films I had A, seen and B, heard of, and C, had not heard of. So is there anything of note that came and went? And I'm content enough that I don't need to see a huge amount of them. But I did notice that in 2018 there was a film called The Amityville Murders, which is about the murders prior to the Lutzes moving in. And it's at the time when I looked, maybe still is. It was on. I presume it still is on YouTube. And so I thought, well, I'll have a look at this just to see, for comparison's sake. So in that film, which was made in 2018, they're all called their actual names. They're not called Montellis,
I think, in Amityville 2, but the real names. So they're using DeFeo.
They're using DeFeo. And the Ronnie DeFeo character does not look like Mick Jagger so much as Father John Misty a bit. So, and it opens with a sort of barbecue scene. They're already there because I think in the real life, it wasn't like they moved in and then murders happened. They'd been there for a while. So they're having a barbecue and the dad is there. And he's giving it, oh, you goddamn it, you hippie kids, what have I told you about you goddamn pansies? And so he's giving all that. And then Burt Young's there. And he's granddad. So you were saying earlier about feeling like he was the granddad.
Wait, he's in the Amityville Murders? Oh, wow.
So he's saying to this ersatz Bert, he's like kind of passing the torch to him.
Oh, really?
Like, hey, leave the kid alone, forget about it. What you gonna do? Look at him, he's a goddamn. So this kind of thing, always with the belt again.
Really? Oh,
and so there's that. There's then they go down into it's not a basement as such, it's maybe it is a basement, but it's a basement in like a kind of where a blogger might live. It's all Charles Manson stuff and countercultural paraphernalia.
Right.
And they have this kind of seance thing. And then the dad comes down and he's like, what have I told you about these goddamn seances?
You kids with your Ouija boards and your fucking your patchouli oils.
You goddamn hippies. But then the mom appears, and then I realized, hang on a minute, she's very familiar looking. And it turns out that she is Dan Franklin.
Oh, right.
So she's playing the mum.
I see.
So, but yeah, so it just kind of plays out. I guess of the Amityville hangers-on that I've seen, it's probably at the higher end in that it's at least seems to be made with the assumption that people might one day watch it on purpose and maybe be nice if it was worth their while. So it's fine as this stuff goes. It's just, but and also it takes the whole film for the possession to finally happen.
Right.
And
because the pacing of Amityville 2 is a bit strange because it seems like the whole film is leading up to a possession and then the family dealing with that, in the house. But so the murders sort of happen about probably halfway, maybe a little more than halfway through, and then it turns into a...
Yeah, I think there's about half an hour left when the murders happen.
All right, so a little more than halfway through. But yeah, then it sort of turns into a completely different film for a bit. With him being possessed and being arrested and being put in front of the judge, and then the priest trying to save him, breaking him out of hospital, which I mean it makes sense, but it's a bit of a tonal shift.
It is. It's massively so. It's and
it's to me it's less interesting than anything leading up to it. Although I quite like it, and I think some of the body horror stuff at the end with the exorcism scene is pretty good. I think the hot priest. What's his name? The guy I can't remember who plays the priest.
Oh, he's a name.
He's been in plenty of stuff. But anyway, I don't know about that whole.
It's a bizarre turn.
That whole thing.
It does feel like. Well, actually, I felt a bit different about it this time. But in the past, I've always felt like, Jesus, like the drop that happens between one scene fading out and the next one starting is so huge. It is just like the first, like the film that was there just stopped and that's the end of it.
Yeah.
And then some other crowd came in to jumble together a sort of vaguely exorcisty thing to shove on the end of it. I think it's a wee bit. I think there are things that it does in that sequence or that half hour even that are weird enough to be still worthwhile. Like it's straight because so basically what you've got is they move into the place. Icky things happen. The mum becomes increasingly aware that there's something up. Mm-hmm. Although she reacts in really interesting ways. So when she first comes in, or near enough, she turns the taps on, and the blood comes out. And she stands there sort of horrified, but not like necessarily screaming. She just stands there, and then it turns to water, and she just bursts out laughing. And that seems really odd, but only because in a horror film, that usually would not happen. She wouldn't just start laughing with relief. But maybe in real life you would. That is the kind of thing you would do. Like when someone tells you really bad news and you get that nervous laugh and you're, oh shit, I can't be laughing at this. There's a bit, so...
There's also a bit where something touches her in the basement. And she's...
Yeah, she does that kind of...
Yeah, she gets startled and then I think the sun comes down and she just looks at him and goes, someone touched me. And he's like, what the fuck are you talking about, you silly old woman?
But
she's not a great actress. I
was going to say she is. I was going to say, yeah. I honestly think they're all. I mean, she's heightened, but
she's very heightened.
It's somewhere between kind of it's sort of between Margot Kidder and who do you call her in Possession?
Julie. Yes, Margot Kidder and Julie Haggerty from Airplane, maybe. Yeah, Margot Kidder was also a bit. I guess it's just a thing with the matriarchs in these Amityville films, is they're always a bit too heightened, perhaps.
Well,
I don't know.
this one. So this is one of the things that I suppose separate it from The Exorcist. The priest. Okay, so the mum wants a priest to come in to bless the house. Mm-hmm. She seems to want him just. It seems like there's no task that couldn't be done better with a priest, as far as she's concerned.
Yeah, and Burt Young's not happy about it.
Burt Young's not happy. You goddamn priests.
Yeah, which is for an Italian. Yeah, for an Italian American, like very kind of conservative dad, you would think he'd be quite happy about a Catholic coming in.
Yeah,
but does it mention something? This might be in the first one. It might mention that he's a lapsed Protestant.
Oh,
and maybe I think that's the Lutz. I think that's the first one. Yeah, but well, yeah, and there's the bit where the priest comes to like bless the house or whatever.
He's like, "Can you come in? That room's a bit cold. Can you?"
Yeah,
which I suppose fuel is expensive, so if you can get a priest to come in and heat the house for
you get some holy warmth.
But then things happen. He's he's out a couple of times, isn't he? Before he decides, before he gets the hint.
This is the problem with watching them both back to back, the first and the second one, and the third one for that matter. Is that there are similar scenes with priests coming to the house. Because I think it's in the first one that he has the little water shaky thing. What do you call it? Is that the first one?
The what the hell do you...
Where you throw holy water around the place.
It's in the second one, but it may be in the first one as well.
Where it turns to blood?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's also in the second one. All right. But that, because then there's the other time where he comes around at nighttime, I think, and a poltergeist blatantly fucks up the kitchen.
That's right.
And he's like, instead of being a priest going, all right, I better sort this out, that was blatantly a poltergeist, he goes, Burt Young doesn't like me, so I'm going to leave now. Instead.
And also he looks to Sonny's room, and the door slams, and he's,
that's right. Yeah.
And then he goes out and his prayer book's ripped to bits. It's no use to anyone anymore.
That's right. Okay, so that's all in the second one. There's a good scene where he meets Sonny for the first time. And Sonny's
and there's that kind of...
possessed at this point, or getting there. And that exchange with him is quite good, I think.
Yeah.
Because it's not openly like antagonistic. It's just kind of the demon in the kid is sort of subtly saying, "Yeah, I'd rather not be around you, mate." Like, okay, please go. Thank you. Bye.
And a wee bit of peacocking maybe as well, just to kind of check another out.
But he hasn't made him sick yet.
No,
he could have just done that instead.
So the last third of it. So we've got all that stuff going on, haunted housey stuff, sort of. And then the possession of Sonny and all that, and then he murders his family, and it's basically a leap from there straight into Sonny's in jail, and we get a tone which is sort of, it lunges back and forward from a sort of courtroom legal drama with a priest, so sort of Father Brown investigates thing, but then with this really blatant exorcist rip-off there at the same time. Far more blatant even than some of the other Italian exorcist rip-offs, even Naked Exorcism or whatever you called it, that was released as Exorcist 3 before there was an Exorcist 3.
Before there was one, yeah.
So that whole last bit feels, it's not of the same. It's almost like once Burt Young was out of the way, it was like, well, okay, I can relax now. I don't have to be on my best behavior anymore for fear of a belting. I'll just bugger around till we end. But there is stuff in that bit that makes it that I had never really noticed. Like, they're just weird stuff, like when the priest is in the cell with him and he's showing him the pictures, and he's just kind of leaning against the wall, sort of all pale-faced, and there's enough to.
Yeah, I think it's all
But yeah,
quite good.
it does go.
But it's just a different type of. It's a different type of thing now.
It's a different type of thing, and it doesn't it doesn't do itself any favors by reminding you of The Exorcist, but at the same time it does sort of underline the things that are different. So, I mean, you can tell. I mean, there's no ambiguity in Amityville II.
No.
There's not a huge amount in The Exorcist, but there's a fair bit for a good while. And the mum has to go through all sorts of things before she's finally convinced. And the priest takes a lot of convincing.
That's another thing to mention about all of these films, including The Exorcist, is that the Catholic Church seems to be really, really resistant to the idea that there might be something supernatural ever going on. It always involves. There's a common theme of a priest having to convince his superior that there might be a demon somewhere.
Yeah.
And the priest, the superior is always like, well, that's absolute nonsense, obviously. And it's like, well, hey, some of the stuff you believe in. Like, why is it so unfeasible that if, assuming you believe in evil and you believe in demons and all of this, that one could be around? And I remember the priest in the second one, especially, I think even after the murders have happened. So this priest warned him, hey, there's something going on. I think there's a possession. And the his senior is just like, don't be stupid. And then the murders happen, and the priest goes, see, I fucking told you. Well, now we got to get the demon out of this boy. And the priest is still like, you're suspended. You're talking shit. This boy just killed his family because... And like obviously in real life, you would think, yeah, good. I would hope that they're not too ready to... The Catholic Church isn't too ready to go around claiming demons are involved and trying to exorcise people. But within the realms of this movie, where something supernatural or unusual is definitely going on, you would hope that his superiors would maybe take him a bit more seriously. But they seem really resistant to the idea of anything supernatural.
Well, there was a case in Ireland not that long ago where a defense of but she was possessed worked.
Really?
To get someone off. I can't remember how far the assault went, but basically the male of the couple, male-female couple, said, well, she was possessed and I had to kind of do what I had to do. And it stuck and it worked. So there's a sense that maybe, as the church's influence shrinks and shrivels away, especially in Ireland, these ostentatious kind of shows of maybe they might become more common.
I don't know. Well, it was definitely, for The Conjuring 3, The Devil Made Me Do It, which is the subtitle of it. That, again, is based on sort of a real case where someone killed his landlord. And then the Warrens turned up a bit later saying, oh, well, I think the Warrens had exorcised his younger brother at one point. The guy who did
starts
this.
with that going on.
In real life, apparently that's the truth. So then when they heard, the older brother of that fellow we exorcised killed someone, they turned up and said, well, it's the demon. The demon that we exorcised from your brother's gone into you, made you kill your landlord. So we're going to... So we're going to mount a defense, which is that you're demonically possessed. So the framing and certainly the advertising of The Conjuring 3 is that the Warrens... It makes it look like it's going to be a courtroom drama, where the whole legal system's on trial. And I think he says something... Yeah. And you think it's going that way, but then obviously you realize, well, there are limitations with what they can do with reality. In reality, they did very briefly try to claim demonic possession, and it was thrown out before the trial even started. So it's kind of funny at the end of The Conjuring 3 when they go, and the guy was sentenced to jail for, I think they try and make it sound like he was sentenced to jail for less time than you might have expected.
Yeah, and they also
still
distract you
to
by
jail for murdering someone because demons aren't real. But
They distract you by playing the spooky abuse recordings over that stuff.
Yeah. I mean, well, we can get to that in a second, but so the premise of that though is pretty similar. It's that someone's done a murder, and the Warrens are there to say no, it's demonic possession. But then in that case, there's really, because it is a real murder and a real guy who I think is still alive. They can't then go and say, and then the court agreed that it was demonic possession, and they can't really do the whole legal courtroom drama. But so instead, they have to sidetrack by going, all right, well, within the first 15 minutes, you never see the courtroom again. You never see the killer again, and the Warrens just go off defeating ghosts by themselves. And then at the very end, I mean, it's weird because the ending is like a sort of happy clappy ending with him having built her a fucking like a little marquee or something, and the Warrens are in love and they're alive and happy together. The end, and then you get a caption reminding you, oh yeah, this was all because some guy killed someone, and weren't they gonna like get him off because he was possessed by a demon? But
there's some sort of
he just went to jail. Right?
Yeah, there's something to do with or unless I'm mangling a bunch of films together, but it goes a bit True Detective in the middle, doesn't it? When they go off to investigate Satanists and their doings, and something to do with a young woman. And
well, there's this again another bit of score settling from the Warrens, who were presumably laughed out of many police stations in their time, where she goes to the police, the detectives like, oh, there are these murders happening. I just cannot figure out how they're happening or what their connection is or whatever. And the Warrens wander in, and to like kind of prove a point, I think, doesn't Lorraine Warren like instantly solve the murder? Some unconnected
she does
murder. She's just like, I'll do my psychic.
Yeah, she does her fainting into the truth.
She faints into the truth, and then the detective's like, well, these guys are obviously, they mean business. There's the bit at the beginning though, in the courtroom which was used heavily in the trailers of The Conjuring 3 was Ed Warren saying something to the effect of, when we take the stand in this courtroom, we put our hand on the Bible and we swear to God.
Yeah.
But if the court will accept the existence of God, then it has to accept the existence of ghosts or something like that. And you're meant to think like, oh wow, that's so obviously they made some kind of impact in this court case. No, the truth is they made no impact whatsoever. So that's why the rest of the film has to be them running around doing some completely fictional nonsense with Satanists and ghosts and demons and whatnot.
Yeah.
But they couldn't do that in Amityville 2. So you have a similar... Well, sorry, they could... In Amityville 2, they had much more license because it was essentially a fictional story at this point entirely. And they weren't... I don't think... I haven't seen any trailers for it, but I'm not sure it would have been promoted saying, based on the true murder case.
That's a good... sorry, good...
Whereas The Conjuring...
I don't know.
Whereas The Conjuring films more or less do present themselves as real. I mean, obviously they're not, but they...
There were reviews of Amityville 2 that understood it to be a prequel. So Roger Ebert says that it's not so much a sequel, it's a prequel. In his review.
It is, yeah.
So that's not strange. He basically says... He says, yeah, it's well made, I suppose. The performances are good, I suppose, but this is nonsense. That's his review. It's like, I don't care. This is a little baloney. It's like, I don't believe it.
In some ways, he's not far off. The very bones of it, I think it's elevated significantly by visual things more than thematic things or, clever concepts or script writing or anything like that. I don't think much...
But I think the visual stuff is so... I mean, that's it. That's kind of... I guess that's where the point of it is.
Yeah,
like that's what it does. The other stuff is just kind of to allow it to do that. Which, I guess there's arguments for that not being...
Well, it's better than The Conjuring 3, which had neither.
Yeah.
It wasn't interesting thematically, and it didn't look very good either.
No. But it's... I mean, the Conjuring, I quite liked the first two, but I understood also why you did not.
You even like the second one, the Enfield
like
one.
is a strong word. I was entertained, which is more than the third one did for me.
I was sort of entertained by it, I suppose, like the dog turning into a
springy CGI man.
Yeah. And the horrible guitar bit where Ed Warren busts out the guitar and starts singing. Yeah, no, you're right. Fair enough. It's entertaining, I guess.
The first one was.
The first one is just Amityville to me. It's not different. There's nothing different about it. I mean, obviously, yeah, there were some superficial differences, but I don't remember anything better about it.
No, but I mean, as far as this stuff goes, I don't think it gets better than Amityville 2. It's icky and creepy, but it's also just fucking. It's like at no point does it, with the exception maybe of how the narrative goes towards the end, at no point is the easy option taken. So that's something about the.
We could have them just be a normal brother and sister, or
we could make
them shag each other instead.
that recent thing tries to kind of have it both ways. So it wants to be more realistic. So the brother and sister have a strange relationship, but it's because they know the secret that great aunt that their grandmother, Burt Young's wife, she knew about this house and about the spirits. But what is never mentioned, except for one quite witty, she doesn't say that. I don't think ancient Indian burial ground or anything like that is ever mentioned, except there are some scenes that mimic the ones in The Possession where the mum's walking about and drafts and the TV turns on upstairs. And what turns on when Dan Franklin goes up is that advert, the famous one with the fly tipping, so flies tipping instead of flies. And the Native American turns around.
With the tear coming down.
That's what comes on the TV. And that's it. That's the last. But I think it's a joke.
I thought you were going to say the TV comes on upstairs and Diane Franklin goes up and it's Amityville 2 playing.
No, that would be good.
That would be good.
But it is one of those. That would have been
something interesting to do.
It's one of those things we'll probably. I mean, is Amityville where it started? That whole shtick, that whole ancient Indian, because then it's in Poltergeist, isn't it, as well?
And The Shining.
And and The Shining as well.
So I don't know if The Shining book, I think, might have come out before. It has to be an old thing. I
remember there was at the conference and festival Cine Excess in 2021 they had a documentary called it was about indigenous American horror films or whatever. I think it was called something like full native, something like that. But there was one of them. One of the directors. In fact, the fellow who made the film has also made horror films, and he said that so often horror is from the perspective of the settlers. I guess like westerns. And he was like, he said, so you've got all these narratives where we move into this place and Amityville happens or poltergeists happen and we have to get some hokey kind of tourist attraction shaman to come in and sort it out. And he said it's kind of like a film about someone breaks into a car and the car alarm goes off and they go and get someone who lives with the person who owns the car and they come and turn the alarm off and they all drive off into the sunset.
I suppose so. Well, I mean, extrapolating that even further, horror films tend to be about, from the perspective of the settlers, the people who move into the house, the ghosts were happy there beforehand. It's never from but I suppose there are a few films which have it from the other perspective. The Others being a good example.
Yeah, it was just. Yeah. I know that was only in my mind because you mentioned it recently, but yeah, that's one where they don't like being
bothered. But
yeah, I don't know why.
That's also giving away the ending, by the way. So sorry if you've never seen it.
Oh shit! Yeah.
Whoops. And then what's that other one? We were always here. Something like that. That kind of.
I was trying to remember the name of that.
It's something like that, isn't it?
That's the one with the shadowy.
Yeah.
Actually, yeah.
People on fire. Yeah.
Because that Amityville Murders has things that look like that. It also uses at the end of it what I assume are crime scene photographs. So there's like your real life photographs, and I mean that's a bit. That's what you see Ronnie. I don't know if he was involved with a mob, but he does look like he probably was in the IRA. But yeah, I remember like whenever I was one of the first times I became aware of what people thought about Amityville 2. Yeah, presumably maybe you still get them. You remember the big Time Out film guide? Big phone book of a thing. Well, I had that. And the review of Amityville 2 from the time was in there. And I looked last night, it's still online, except now it's got a 2012 date on it. But basically what they said was, this is awful. It's basically a film about a bunch of slobby working class jerks getting shot out of a house they didn't deserve to be in the first place anyway. That's basically all it said.
What?
No. It's like
is that your interpretation of it, perhaps?
Their interpretation was
is that your interpretation of what they said? Because it doesn't sound like they would get away with that.
No, because I know it doesn't. But I quoted it to myself in a note. It was a very short review, but I've quoted the bit where they said, "Noisy working-class Italian Catholics who don't deserve to live in a Long Island WASP mansion, even one where blood comes out of the kitchen taps from time to time. Awful." So they weren't saying that was their opinion of those characters. They were saying that's the film's opinion of those characters.
I see. Right.
They're a bunch of slobs who shouldn't be there anyway.
I don't think that's really in there.
The other thing about it, and I didn't know this until recently either, like we were saying about Evil Dead, and did it come out before? And because so much of what this does is the same stuff that Evil Dead gets, rightfully praised for. But apparently, the day, or I guess it must have been, when critics were seeing Amityville 2 for the first time, the other film they were seeing that day was Evil Dead.
Right.
So, I mean, I guess you can see why that one might have made
one out
Amityville 2 look a bit,
But am I right in remembering that Evil Dead, when it first appeared, it wasn't particularly well received? It took a little while.
I honestly, I think it was. I thought it was pretty.
Was it like
an
overnight sensation, or did it take a little minute? I'm not sure.
It probably had notoriety.
Maybe the only reason I think that is because my dad apparently went to see it in London with Sam Raimi there, and he said that he went up and talked to Sam Raimi afterwards because no one else wanted to talk to him.
Wow, because they were like, what the hell,
Maybe it just gave me the impression that, all right, Evil Dead wasn't beloved at first. Maybe it took a little while, but that could also just be my dad having a weird story. Maybe it wasn't Sam Raimi he went and talked to. Maybe he assumed it was, but it wasn't. Maybe that's why no one was talking to him, and maybe that's why my dad had that impression. He went to see Evil Dead at the cinema and went and talked to someone afterwards who no one else was talking to, and you sort of turned that into the time that he recognized Sam Raimi's genius before anyone else. I'm gonna have to challenge him on that. That could be.
I honestly don't know. I always just assumed, like, I can see the Stephen King quote, which is now ubiquitous. It's on everything. It's anything in this room. There's a bottle of apple juice. It's probably got a Stephen King quote on. So, and also my friend, I haven't seen him in a long time. Graham Humphreys, the artist who did the poster for Evil Dead. I remember him talking about the impact of it at the time, because he got the job to do that artwork. He said it was him and one other person who were up for it, and he was the only one of the two who made it through the film, because the other one left. So that's how. Well, it was partly why he got that gig. So,
well, presumably Sam Raimi was there too, because he was at every screening in England apparently. Did Graham Humphreys get the gig because Sam Raimi was standing by himself in the lobby, just waiting for someone to do the artwork for it? All right. Well, I don't know. Is that about? I felt like there was more to say about Amityville, but maybe there wasn't. I think the problem is that we both like the second one and don't seem to have much good or much of anything to say about the other two. Well, the other two in the main, in the main trilogy anyway.
Well, I suppose that's the thing. Like, I don't know when it branches off to become something else, to become other films, because I know I was fairly old before I saw the third one, and it was well after I had already, come to feel the way I feel now about the second one.
I hadn't seen the third one until about a week ago.
I remember nothing about it other than the 3D stuff. Well, I remember the fourth one coming out on video when I was wee. I remember I was allowed to hear that out, and I think it was the first of the kind of it's not the house, it's this thing that was in the house. So I think I've read that it's a lamp. I thought it was a mirror, but apparently later on it is a mirror. But yeah, so there'd be a lot of that sort of business. And then there was a sort of I never saw the whole thing at the time, and now I can't find it in my copy anywhere. But there was a documentary called My Amityville Horror. I say documentary.
Yes.
It seemed, I don't know how far from there it travels as it goes on, but I know that what I saw of it, was, basically the youngster. Was it the youngster of the Lutzes?
Oh, I'm not sure.
Is that right? Does that make sense? Anyway, he's telling you about his what went on during that time, during those hauntings, and there's some photographs. I know there is a photograph that does the rounds but there was ones that I hadn't seen outside of this film, and they were actually quite creepy. So you get stuff like that, and then that thing, and then there's ones where it's the dollhouse, and there's it's just it's bizarre. I don't know how you would go about. I've heard people say there are like 18, 19 films, but where the official. I don't know if anyone has the rights to. Presumably, whoever made the remake.
Yeah.
Had the.
Yeah, I would say they're all official. The first three are official in so far as I think they were all produced by Dino De Laurentiis, and I think after that he was no longer involved.
Well, the fourth one does have 4 at least, so at least tells you that it's coming from there. But it was straight to telly. I don't know if I guess it's kind of like the Omen 4.
I didn't know there was an Omen 4.
There was a TV. Unsurprisingly, it rarely shows up in the box sets or anything. Although it did show up in one. But Omen 4: The Awakening. I think it's Damien's daughter.
Dear.
It's not much.
Damiana.
So, as an Amityville film, it is clearly. There are more miles between Amityville and the Moon than there are between the quality of that film and the quality of the rest of them. So there's that. But as a possession film, I can't really think, aside from The Exorcist, because I don't know. People always talk about how The Exorcist was. It's kind of like you were saying about the scenes where they're contesting, and The Exorcist isn't anything like as a sort of a Catholic to the rescue film as this is. And it's the one thing that kind of leapt out because I had watched The Exorcist recently was the extent. So initially, in Amityville 2, you're with the demon. Prowling about, and there's a kind of surveillance element, so like it moves mirrors about so it can see down the hall, and you can see and then you're with him as he goes around the house with the gun. Whereas in The Exorcist, it's the reverse. It's like the demon isn't watching anybody else. It changes depending on who is watching it, kind of thing. So like when the mom comes in and everything's going mad and it starts speaking with the voice of the actor or the director that she thinks Reagan killed, or the priest comes in and it's her mom and whatever else. So there's that, I suppose, that distinguishes the two. But yeah, as possession stuff goes, I can't really. I don't know which of those two I would say is better. The
Exorcist.
But I know probably. Well, The Exorcist probably is better.
You know, I think that's almost provable. But no, Amityville 2 is a lot more interesting. Again, when you first recommended it to me, I was kind of dreading it, thinking like, oh no, because but no, it has a lot more going.
Well, understandable.
Yeah, there's no reason to think it would be anywhere near as interesting as it is. And when I say interesting, I really mostly am talking about the aesthetics of it and things that it does cinematically, rather than the story itself or the script. I suppose throwing that incest subplot in there is pretty interesting. I don't think it's particularly good.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's necessarily a good thing to have in there, but it's certainly surprising. And I think even watching that today where, horror delves into dark places every now and then, and there's kind of a sort of emerging trope of horror being a representation of trauma now. And I think even today, people would be kind of surprised to see that incest stuff in a horror movie about a demon.
Yeah.
It's true. Yeah. I don't know if it's good or bad.
There's
but
also
it's
some
there.
of the actual.
It's absolutely there.
And outside of Terrifier and its kind of outrageous business. I mean,
what incest? You mean with
outside of films and that
with the dad drawing his daughter's tits?
No, I'm just thinking of things that you wouldn't possibly expect in it. And the other thing is when he's during the murders, just I guess the amount of attention and the amount of time you're spending with children in peril prior to their murder. I mean, there's a shot of him kicking one of their legs as it's twitching and whatnot.
Actually, we haven't really talked much about the murder sequence itself in Amityville 2, where he kills his family, because it does involve him killing two really young children, which is still to this day kind of a taboo to see.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to sort of, outside of the kind of deliberately, button pushing Terrifier type thing, which this isn't. I don't think you couldn't say it's the same sort of thing.
Even in Terrifier,
like this,
you don't see him kill any children. I mean, obviously, teenagers are a little different.
Well, doesn't he shotgun the kids at that?
Tommy gun them. They're not children, though. They're played by adults.
Yeah.
They're just dressed kind of childlike and acting, I suppose, kind of childishly. Maybe the kid at the table. There's one child in that sequence is at the table, and maybe I don't think you see him get Tommy gunned. I don't think so. I don't think you actually see children getting killed. I think seeing a child get shot on screen and die is still fairly rare. I remember Assault on Precinct 13 has a scene like that, and it was considered really shocking or surprising at the time, and I think it still would be. I think I was watching Amityville 2 again. I was kind of uncomfortable during that sequence because I'm like, oh god, yeah, he does go and kill those children, doesn't he? But you do kind of see it too. It's not. I mean, they cut around it a little bit. It's a bit. Obviously, they're sensitive about it, but yeah, it's right there.
I mean, that whole sequence is phenomenal. It's the way even because it's one of the times whenever that whole thing of whether the demon is watching what's going on or whether what's going on is watching it kind of goes back and forth. So like the younger boy is watching as the mom's being shot, and then he kind of ducks out of the frame at the same time as Dan Franklin comes in at the other side. It's incredible. mean, the whole thing, it looks like a lot of work. It's like exhausting.
Yeah,
like,
and it goes on a good long while as well. It's not him like running around chasing like in a typical horror movie way. It's very slowly just kind of walking through the house, dispatching them all one by one. But yeah, it's good. That bit, I think. I mean, it's horrible, but
it feels ill.
Yeah,
it's a film that feels ill.
Yeah, with all the because they do this in the first one too with George Lutz is kind of physically unwell for a lot of it as he's being corrupted by the influence of the demon or whatever. But in this one you really do get that kind of like flu-y, fevery. Yeah. It looks like he's always sweating. The kid, he's always.
Yes.
Yeah,
that bit with his stomach going on is like just drenched. It's like, I think that's maybe why the last third initially, for the first few times I saw it, got in the way, because it breaks that.
It's less claustrophobic. Yeah, they're not in the house anymore. And it's also brighter as well.
It's like an antibiotic has appeared. You didn't want an antibiotic.
No, it's good. So if there's anything to take away from this episode, I suppose it's if you haven't already, give Amityville 2 The Possession a try. Don't worry about the others, really. I wouldn't bother yourself unduly with them. Because also, in some ways, Amityville 2 is, at least for the first third, if not half, it's kind of the same as Amityville 1 for all intents and purposes. It's better. It's more interesting.
All the atmosphere that there should be in the first one clearly was saved up for this one.
Amityville,
which has more atmosphere.
Yeah, the first Amityville is really, really boring. I find it really boring and repetitive, and certainly, especially now. Like I can imagine maybe in the 70s it might have been kind of exciting, but especially now that you've seen so many clones of it, whether they have Amityville in their name or not, there's really not much point, and it's not good enough to stand up on its own merits. It kind of just blends in to all those others. Yeah.
No, the only way it really would work is if you believe, first of all, that it's true. And I suppose if you also believe Mrs. Warren's comment about anything associated with the house having some sort of evil in it, because then it might have as well, I suppose. That might spook you a bit.
None of these mention the house after the people who bought it after the Lutzes have lived there for a very long time, and mentioned that nothing at all unusual is going on. But I suppose, how do we know they're not demons? Well, the people who are currently in the house saying, no, nothing to worry about here. They could be possessed by demons.
Which is, I love, see, the demons, they're in that kind of thing where it's false modesty, but then whenever something else starts getting credit for it, they're like, no. No, it was me. Look.
Yeah, it's funny. They either want to hide themselves and not be known at all, and do whatever they can to ensure that no one finds out about them, or they're being very, very blatant about it. But yeah, you can't quite tell their motivations. It's the same in and with the Amityville house too. It's all right. So this is some kind of Indian burial site or something along those lines. I'm not sure if they say burial ground actually. I think they might just say
it's some sort of religious. It's like a sacred. Yeah, it's something.
Yeah,
in that line. I don't think it's. But it's like in Ireland it's like getting rid of the hawthorn tree or the fairy tree. It's that kind of thing. It's like you can't touch that because that's got spiritual, mystical.
But someone's built a house on it, so now the Native American spirits are angry. But it definitely seems. I suppose what's a little in the movies anyway, it seems as though it's a typical Judeo-Christian demon, just because of how it interacts with the Catholics, the religious figures. You would think that a genuine Native American, kind of primal pagan and deity of some kind wouldn't really be that bothered about who was coming in with their Jesus. But
well, then again, I mean, Jesus had a lot to do with them. Getting, I think they were quite fond of
just think that they
settlers.
Well, yeah, I guess so. Maybe that's it. Maybe it's just like, oh well, this is associated with the kind of people who come here, but it doesn't read that way. It doesn't read like, oh, this is clearly a Native American spirit. 'Cause you can read a bit about them, and they're kind of interesting. This is an exorcist one.
Yeah, and it clearly knows what a Jesus is because it's hissing at that one on the wall. But Jim Morrison's up there with the same pose, and it doesn't throw any sheets at him, so he knows the difference.
Good point.
It knows the difference.
Yeah, you just think it wouldn't really be bothered either which way, but I don't know. So it's also accepting these films that the power of Christ is real, and
more so I would say than The Exorcist.
The Exorcist has a much more...
The priest here wins, essentially.
Kind of, yeah. He still, I guess he channels the demon into himself. But there's one more, kind of unrelated, but sort of fun. One of my favorite aspects of Amityville 2 is this hot priest who eventually comes and saves the day. He's got this mate, right? He's got this friend who doesn't really serve any purpose except he takes him camping. Or like they sort of go off into this sort of cabin with bunk beds, and that's why he's unable to answer the phone when Diane Franklin is trying to call him saying, "You got to come here. My brother's possessed, and he's gonna." Because he's up with his mate. Camping in this little cabin, and then you think, all right, well, fine, maybe they needed a reason for him to go away, but then this mate keeps cropping up again and again, never really doing anything. Just
he's there at the grave, isn't he? He's there whenever they're
he's all over. I think he turns up at the house at the end, or he turns up in the church trying to find him or something like that, but he's just sort of all over for no real reason. I just thought it was quite nice. It was quite funny. All right, we have a character that's pretty much pointless, but he's sort of, it's just sort of funny. It's kind of hard to explain without seeing the film, but if you watch the film, you'll be like, oh, hang on, this guy's here again. And he's not doing anything, but he's just always here. He's friends with this priest.
He doesn't really influence
the plot, except for taking him away camping, which is also a bit. What are they doing? Because I don't think they have they go off to this place. There's like a very small cabin with bunk beds, but that's all you see them doing. I don't know if they're not going hiking or anything. They're dressed. I think he's still dressed in his little priest. He's got his little dog collar on. It's like, what are you doing?
Exactly, and they're priests. Their whole life is camping. They live in a house that is not their own.
Yeah. In Amityville 2, it seems like this priest is always just in his office. I think that's where he lives. And he's got a little bed.
That's right,
But I don't know if it's common for Catholic priests in the U.S. to live in the church, but that's what it seems is happening here. Maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah, it's like a... Well, usually you've got the parochial house or whatever you want to call it attached at least.
Yeah, I guess so.
But yeah, he does seem to. He's certainly not like Karas in The Exorcist, who has this kind of soft cell looking bed going on.
Nice and grim with his mum. Or the other one, Father. Who's the main? Max von Sydow. Who's the Father Merrin?
Oh, Merrin.
Just jet setting. Yeah, he's got quite an attractive life. Going off to Iraq and looking at demons and
Pazuzus and I actually there's a bit. This is of interest to nobody.
That's a good title for this episode. This is of interest to nobody. Whoops.
There's a bit where Karas is
one episode about Terrifier. All right.
There's a bit where he's listening back to the tape, where it's English, it's backwards, and he's listening back and it's going, "Rah!" And I was like, Jesus, it sounds a lot like Jello Biafra. And because I've been listening to a lot of Dead Kennedys recently, because Ulysses, My Bearded Dragon, developed a fondness for certain Dead Kennedys songs. So then every time I hear Moon Over Marin, by the dead Kennedys. All I can hear is Moon over Marin, of course.
Fantastic.
So, I don't know if there's anything kind of...
Is there anything we can do with that?
That's a tentacle too far as alternative tentacles go.
Well, on that bombshell, I don't know. I think that's probably Amityville told. I feel like there's probably more to say about the Conjurings, but I feel like maybe that could be tied into something else. Maybe, Ghostwatch can tie into the Conjuring too, because they're both loose adaptations of the Enfield haunting. If anything, somehow Ghostwatch, which claims no direct correlation to the Enfield haunting, is a more faithful adaptation than the Conjuring is.
Yeah, absolutely. It recreates that photograph.
The objects flying around.
Girls.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's it. It doesn't. That's different. That's not the same thing.
Whereas the Conjuring 2 is saying, yes, this is the Enfield poltergeist, and by the way, while we're at it, is when the dog turned into a crooked old man. Who never got his own spin-off, I don't think. Did he? The Crooked Man got a spin-off?
Well, I don't actually know, but I mean,
you were
sure
saying,
he must at some point.
Have they calmed down with that now? Because it was like, okay, we'll put a new character in each of the Conjuring movies that will then is fated to get its own spin-off. So the Nun got one. The scary Nun from the Conjuring 2.
The scary Nun got one.
Annabelle got several.
I remember someone telling me that at least one of them.
I think
was
it might
good.
have been me, and it's not that it was good. It's the Annabelle Comes Home is about the daughter being left at home, as she always fucking is, by the Warrens, who go off, spend all their time neglecting their daughter and leaving her alone in a house full of possessed, dangerous artifacts. And so the story of this one is they fuck off again to, go and bother someone who, I don't know, that something spooky has happened somewhere, so we gotta leave again. Sorry, kid. They go off and she gets into all their cabinet of curiosities, and starts unleashing every single demon that they have in this room, including Annabelle and
like in a sort of puppet master type.
And there's nothing original about the film, and it's not scary or anything. It's not particularly good, but it's just their daughter going, in a house that's going mental with all these demonic objects and stuff.
Well, that's probably why I watched however much I watched of the second one, because I probably thought, I don't want to see the first one. I have heard reasonably good things about the second one, and then I've heard this about the third one. So that's probably what I was trying to do, but I never made it very far into the second one.
The second one, I think, is the one, the Origins, Annabelle Begins, or whatever it's called.
Annabelle
Creation.
Is that what it's called?
Where they're on like a farmhouse. That one's really crap. It's really crap, but it's kind of funny. I must have read on Wikipedia about it or something, and the filmmaker seemed very, very like, no, this is true horror. I think he's Spanish maybe, or from some foreign country that makes him sound sophisticated, and he was saying, no, I'm more interested in practical effects and eerie creepiness, and I want it to be about what you don't see rather than what you do see. And I'm like, well, that all sounds very good. But then you watch the film and it's like, well, no, you haven't done that. Why talk about it? You haven't done it.
Yeah. Well, it's that thing about directors not being very reliable when it comes to what their films do.
Yeah, but the third one is only good because it's the only one of the films which sort of brings any kind of attention to the fact that the Warrens are really terrible parents.
Yes.
Which, doesn't really get resolved in any way. She's just glad when they come home. She's just like, thank God, because, all of these demonic, dangerous, murderous artifacts you've left me with nearly killed me. So I'm glad you're back.
Well, it's yeah, and there's probably a bit if they've probably warped her head with all the evangelical stuff as well. So maybe there was some of that thief in the night kind of rapture fear, like my parents are gone, they're never coming back.
Yeah, no.
And what's worse, these bloody Rubik's cubes are hissing at me.
No, I always felt guilty about like going. I went to see the first Conjuring in the cinema, and I always felt guilty about that. That I've just put some money in Lorraine Warren's pocket. But now Lorraine Warren's dead too, mercifully, so presumably their daughter is getting some of this money, and I think that's fair enough. They've probably put her through the fucking ringer. Yeah. Not that has... Oh, sorry, I think you've frozen.
Yeah, I just got a thing saying... That's bizarre. It did say camera stop, but I don't know why.
Oh, this is spooky. This is eerie going on, so we've... this is Lorraine Warren from Beyond the Grave saying, "How dare you?" Well, anyway, that I don't need to see you to wrap it up.
I do seem to have. I can see a frozen version of myself looking quite.
Yeah, it does look rather sinister,
demonic. I would imagine there's a possession or two going on there.
I don't know. I'm sure if.
I even seem to have like a cross on my head, like Charlie Manson.
Oh God, you do it, Law. Well, if this is indeed demonic activity, then surely it will do something to let us know that it's present.